Greetings from the English Literature YouTube channel. It is a one-stop destination to soothe all your literary curiosities. In this video, we will study a poem, Bride of the Fire, that is written by Sri Aurobindo Ghosh. Here is the text of the poem. Bride of the fire, clasp me now close, bride of the fire. I have shed the bloom of the earthly rose, I have slain desire. Beauty of the light, surround my life, beauty of the light. I have sacrificed longing and parted from grief, I can bear thy delight. Image of ecstasy, thrill and inlace, image of bliss. I would see only thy marvelous face, feel only thy kiss. Voice of infinity, sound in my heart, call of the One. Stamp there thy radiance, never to part, O living sun. Now let's understand this poem line by line. In the opening line, the poet addresses the bride of the fire and asks her to embrace him in her arms. Here, the bride of the fire is a metaphorical representation of spiritual illumination or the divine, symbolizing spiritual power or the supreme being. Through the address "Clasp me now close", the poet expresses an intense desire to embrace this spiritual power. In the second line, "Bride of the fire" is repeated and an exclamation mark is placed at the end. This indicates that the poet wants to attain spiritual bliss as soon as possible, because he can no longer wait. This type of repetitive exclamative clause can be seen in the second line of every stanza. This repetitive exclamative clause functions in the poem just as it does in our everyday spoken language. For example, when we want something from someone, we address them and ask for that thing. And when there is a delay or no response from that person, we repeat the subject of the sentence with emphasis. For instance, John, please bring me the pen. John. In the third line, the poet says that he has renounced worldly desires. In the fourth line, the poet emphasizes this point again and claims that he has been freed from all kinds of materialism and longing. Here, through the third and fourth lines, the poet is also trying to convey what he has done to attain the bride of the fire. This means the poet is not merely expressing a desire, but he has also prepared and qualified himself on a practical level to fulfill that desire. In the third and fourth lines, we encounter a paradox. The paradox is that the poet claims to have renounced desires, yet in the first line, he himself says he wants to attain the bride of the fire. So, if this is not a desire, what is it? To understand this paradox, we need to recognize that the poet is suggesting that in order to achieve great and important desires, one must renounce smaller and trivial desires, just as the poet renounces minor worldly pleasures to pursue a greater spiritual joy. Let's move on to the second stanza. In the fifth line, the poet addresses the beauty of the light, which is again a metaphorical representation of spiritual enlightenment or spiritual knowledge. By referring to "surround my life", The poet expresses a desire for constant guidance and illumination in every aspect of his existence. In the sixth line, the poet again uses a repetitive exclamative clause to reflect his intense desire. In the seventh line, the poet explains why he is worthy of attaining spiritual knowledge. He is worthy because he has separated himself from craving, suffering, and emotional pain. In the eighth line, the poet assures that he is prepared and capable of facing the transformative effects that come with gaining spiritual knowledge. In the ninth line, the poet addresses the image of ecstasy, which metaphorically represents spiritual bliss. Here, the verbs thrill and enlace express the poet's desire to form a deep connection with the state of spiritual joy. In the tenth line, there is again a repetitive exclamative clause that emphasizes the poet's desire to attain spiritual bliss. The only difference here is the use of bliss instead of ecstasy, which are synonyms. In the 11th line, the poet says, "I will see only your wondrous face," meaning the poet wants to focus solely on divine or spiritual joy. In the 12th line, the word kiss symbolizes a touch or communion with spiritual bliss, serving as a metaphorical representation. Through this line, the poet expresses a desire to establish an intense and intimate connection with spiritual joy. In the 13th line, the poet addresses the voice of infinity, which metaphorically represents supreme and limitless communication from the divine. By saying, "Sound in my heart," the poet requests supreme and limitless communication from the divine to reach inside his heart, so that divine knowledge and truth can resonate within his heart. The 14th line is a repetitive exclamative clause that reflects the poet's yearning for the supreme and limitless communication with the divine. Now you must be thinking that how is this line a repetitive exclamative clause? Because this line is completely different from the above line, right? So let me elaborate it. Here, in the context of the poem, both these phrases are synonym to each other. I am telling you how. Call is synonym to voice, and the one, which means the singular divine that encompasses all existence, is synonym to infinity. Hence, it is proved that voice of infinity is equal to call of the one. In the 15th line, the poet requests the divine presence to imprint his radiant energy within his heart, so that it becomes an everlasting part of his being. This line highlights the poet's desire for a permanent transformation where the divine light remains inseparable from his soul. Finally, the 16th line concludes the poem by addressing the divine as the living sun. Here, the sun is a metaphor for the source of all life and illumination, symbolizing the divine's vital role in the poet's spiritual journey. The poet seeks the warmth, energy, and enlightenment that the living sun provides, aspiring to be eternally united with this supreme source of spiritual vitality. Here comes an end to the line-by-line explanation of the poem. Moving on to the analysis of the poem. This poem is composed of 4 stanzas, and each stanza contains 4 lines. So, in other words, we can say that the poem is structured in 4 quatrains. The consistent quatrain structure contributes to the poem's rhythmic and lyrical quality. The rhyming scheme of the poem is AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF, GH, GH. The first and third lines are longer, composed of four somewhat irregular feet. The second and fourth lines are shorter and have only 2 feet each. Now let's discuss the themes of the poem. Here comes the first theme: spiritual aspiration and enlightenment. The poem explores the poet's deep yearning for spiritual awakening and enlightenment. The speaker seeks to transcend the physical world and achieve a higher state of consciousness. This longing for spiritual knowledge and divine union is depicted through the metaphors bride of the fire and beauty of the light, representing the divine as a source of illumination and transformation. Next theme is transformation and renunciation. A key theme is the poet's renunciation of worldly desires and material attachments. Phrases like "I have shed the bloom of the earthly rose" and "I have slain desire" illustrate the poet's commitment to letting go of materialism and fleeting pleasures. This act of renunciation is seen as essential for spiritual fulfillment and alignment with the divine. The poet contrasts this renunciation with the pursuit of greater spiritual joy, preparing to receive the divine's transformative light and delight. Ecstasy and bliss is the third theme here. The poet seeks the image of ecstasy and image of bliss, representing spiritual joy and fulfillment. This pursuit of ecstasy drives the poet's longing for divine union, where the poet aspires to experience the divine's transformative power and bliss. This theme highlights the idea that true fulfillment and joy come from embracing spiritual ecstasy rather than seeking temporary pleasures. The fourth theme is the power of invocation. The poem is structured as an invocation, where the poet calls upon the divine with intense longing. This theme reflects the power of invocation as a means of connecting with the divine. The poet's passionate pleas signify the belief that sincere invocation can bridge the gap between the human and the divine, facilitating spiritual union. This highlights the importance of active participation in the spiritual journey, where the seeker invites the divine into their life. So that was all for the themes of the poem. Now let's identify and discuss the literary devices used in the poem. The first one is metaphor. Metaphors are used here, 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 here. Number two is repetition. Number three is imagery. Number four is personification. But personification of whom? Personification of the divine. The poem personifies the divine as entities like bride, beauty, and voice, attributing human qualities to the divine presence. This personification emphasizes the closeness and intimacy of the poet's relationship with the divine, highlighting the personal and emotional nature of the spiritual journey. Number five is paradox. The poem presents a paradox in the idea of renouncing earthly desires to attain the ultimate desire of divine union. The poet sacrifices the bloom of the earthly rose and longing and grief to achieve spiritual fulfillment, illustrating the belief that true joy comes from transcending lesser desires for a higher spiritual goal. Number six is apostrophe. The poem employs apostrophe by directly addressing the divine entities such as bride of the fire and beauty of the light. This direct address creates a sense of immediacy and personal connection, allowing the poet to express his fervent pleas and invocations to the divine presence. As we are approaching towards the end of this video, let us quickly go through the summary. Bride of the Fire is a powerful expression of the soul's quest for spiritual enlightenment and union with the divine. It encapsulates the transformative journey from earthly renunciation to the realization of eternal bliss, emphasizing the profound and personal nature of the spiritual path. Sri Aurobindo's poetic language and spiritual insight make this poem a timeless reflection on the pursuit of divine truth and joy. Now, wrapping up this video with a glimpse of the previous year questions that have been asked in the term and exams since 2010. I hope you understood this poem well. Thank you for watching it till the end. And yes, stay tuned with the English literature to keep soothing your literary curiosities.